At first light, above Câmara de Lobos, a fisherman coils a blue rope beside a painted boat while banana leaves shine wet behind him, and the levada water begins its narrow walk along the mountain wall. "600 meters higher, on a terrace in Monte, a gardener presses one orchid root into black volcanic soil, condensation dripping from a leaf onto the back of his wrist. In the laurel shade of Rabassal, a man lifts a small stone gate by hand, and water, sent through channels totaling 3,000 kilometers, turns toward a single field. This is Madeira, the Atlantic archipelago João Gonçalves Zarco claimed for Portugal in 1420. Nearer to Africa than to Lisbon, a volcanic mountain that rose from the sea and never stopped growing things. They call it the Island of Eternal Spring, yet spring is a gentle word for a place where families once farmed cliffs they could barely reach, and where, for centuries, the hardest thing on the island was leaving it. What follows moves downhill, as everything here does, from gardens on the peaks, along the walking water, through terraces and hidden valleys, down to the painted doors of the town. The old town of Funchal is still in shadow when the first glass gondola lifts from its station near the seafront, and the terracotta roofs and the harbour fall away beneath it into the morning haze. The cable car climbs from Funchal to the parish of Monte, roughly 560 meters of altitude in about a quarter of an hour, and it retraces in silence and in comfort, a route that people once climbed on foot in more than an hour, baskets on their backs, the sea always widening below them. Opened in the year 2000, the line does the one thing the island has always asked of anyone who wants to live on it. It goes up. It carries the passenger over gardens stacked upon gardens, and at the top, it hands him to the mountain, where the ground tilts and a garden begins at the cable car door. This is the Monte Palace garden, and it climbs the hillside in levels, the way the whole island does. Terraces of ferns and cycads rise in stacked tiers. Koi turn in dark ponds, and blue and white tiled panels are set into the retaining walls. A stone path descending in switchbacks through all of it. The garden is laid out on the grounds of a former hillside estate, on land that was always too steep to plough, and so was planted instead. Thousands of species are gathered here from across the world, brought to a slope where nothing could be farmed, and everything, it turns out, could be grown. 600 years after João Gonçalves Zarco claimed this coast for Portugal in 1420, the slopes he found bare of people are terraced with flowers from every continent. None of it grew here on its own. Lower down the same slope, a second garden does the same work by different rules. The Madeira Botanical Garden, below Monte, arranges the hillside for knowledge rather than wonder. Its beds of colored succulents laid out in geometric patterns that read, from above, like woven cloth against the blue of the bay. Where the Monte Garden is romance, this one is the ledger. Here, the endemic species of the island's native laurel forest are catalogued and set beside the imports, each plant labeled, each origin recorded, a working account of exactly what grows on this rock and where it first came from. Same slope, same impossible steepness, arranged this time so that it can be studied. Follow the terraces west until the garden runs out of ground entirely and the island simply stops. At Cabo Girão, a platform with a glass floor juts from the cliff edge, and beneath the glass there are 580 meters of nothing before the sea, one of the highest sea cliffs in Europe. Yet even here, at the very bottom of that drop, small cultivated plots hold to the base of the cliff at the waterline, reachable for centuries only by boat, worked by families who lowered themselves and their tools down to a shelf of farmland the ocean had left them. A man tends vines on a ledge no wider than a room, the whole cliff falling away at his shoulder, and the vegetable plot below him is as green as any terrace at the top. The sea left them the shelf. They did the rest. But none of these gardens drinks the rain where it falls. On this side of the mountain, the sky is often dry and bright, and the water that keeps the orchids and the succulents and the cliff-foot vines alive does not come from above them at all. It is walked here, by hand, from the far wet side of the mountain, along channels cut into the rock. And to find where it begins, one has to climb into the cloud. The water begins in the cloud itself. Up on a plateau, where the air is wet through, the trees of Funchal stand waiting in it, ancient laurels, their trunks twisting and doubling back on themselves, hung with moss, their crowns dissolving into a fog so thick that the far edge of the meadow simply disappears. This is the Laura silva, the laurel forest that once covered much of southern Europe and now survives, in this density, almost nowhere but here. A relict woodland older than the last ice age and protected since 1999 as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The trees do the island's first and oldest work. Their leaves comb the moisture out of the passing cloud, gathering it drop by drop until it beads and falls. And the same fog that soaks a walker's sleeve is being pressed, slowly and continuously, into the ground as water. The smell is wet bark and cold stone, the air several degrees colder than the coast, and the only sound is the drip of a forest quietly making the rain it was never given. Where the ground can hold no more, the water runs out cold. Lower in the interior lies Ribeiro Frio, which means simply the cold river, a place of springs where clear water runs through mossed stone, and stone tanks set beside the current hold trout that face upstream. The fish keep their place against a flow that never warms and never stops, and the same constant cold that fills the tanks slides on beneath them toward the channels below. A visitor leans over the water, and the trout hold their place, nose to the current, in a pool clear enough to count the stones on its floor. From the springs, the water is handed to the channels, and one of them leads out along a cliff face to a railed balcony high above the central mountains. This is the Levada dos Balcões, the Levada of the balconies, and the word names the thing that made the island livable. A levada is a channel cut into the rock by hand, built to carry water from the wet north, where the cloud gathers, to the dry, sunny south, where the people wanted to live. Roughly 3,000 kilometers of these channels are threaded across an island barely 57 kilometers from end to end, and the narrow one running beside this path, no wider than a boot, is a single thread of that enormous hand-cut web, still carrying water to fields it will never see. From this balcony, the peaks of the interior stand clear on a fine day, but the water pays them no attention. It keeps to its channel, losing height so slowly that it seems to stand still. Follow one channel deep enough into the forest, and it stops being scenery and becomes a workplace. The Levada do Caldeirão Verde runs single file through dripping laurel, the path pressed between the mossed stone lip of the water on one side and the drop of the ravine on the other, winding for hours toward the Caldeirão Verde itself, a green cauldron of rock where a thin waterfall falls into a pool. The channel does not clear itself. It is walked and kept by the levaderos, the men who keep the water moving, who follow the levadas along their length, pulling out fallen leaves and loosened stone, checking the flow, opening and closing the small gates that decide which field drinks and which one waits. One of them crouches at a wooden sluice, moss soft under his boots, and lifts the gate with a single hand, and the water changes its note as it turns down a side channel toward one terrace far below, the sound sharpening as the flow narrows and drops away. By the time the water reaches the terraces, it has been walking for hundreds of years, gate after gate, hand after hand. And where it finally stops, the fruit begins. The terraces begin where the last channel empties, and on the sun-facing south coast, they are green, with something small and particular. The banana that grows on these slopes is a shorter denser variety than the long fruit of the supermarket shelf, seldom more than 15 centimeters. Sweeter for its size, ripened on plots stacked one above another from the road down to the sea. Each terrace is held by a dry stone wall, a farmer laid by hand, and the whole hillside is a staircase of them, too narrow and too steep for any machine, worked the way it has always been worked, on foot and on the knees. Most of the crop is eaten close to home or shipped north to mainland Portugal, where these small bananas are prized for the very smallness. A larger market would count as a fault. Small is the point. Below the banana terraces, the land drops to Câmara de Lobos, a fishing village set into a cove that João Gonçalves Zarco named in 1420 for the monk seals, the sea wolves he found lying on its rocks. Painted boats lie drawn up on the shingle, and the men who crew them go out after the black scabbardfish, a long, dark creature, hauled up at night from 800 meters down, so strange in the hand that it reaches the plate looking as though the deep still clings to it. At a tiled counter above the harbour, a fisherman makes poncha, the drink the men of this coast have long taken against the cold, crushing lemon and honey into a measure of sugarcane spirit and working it with a wooden muddler until it turns cloudy and gold, the smell of the spirit rising while a boat outside knocks against its neighbour on the swell. Before wine, sugar made Madeira rich in the 15th and 16th centuries, and that sweetness carried a cost the island cannot make gentle. Cane fields and mills worked with enslaved African labor, wealth moving downhill to the harbor through bodies that had been brought here by force. Later, on the terraces above the village, the vines grow low, trained on frames a person can walk beneath, and the grapes they carry go to make the wine that first carried the island's name around the world. In a lodge in the center of Funchal, casks of Madeira rest in the heated upper rooms, where the heat itself does the work. The wine held near blood temperature month after month, a slow cooking that once happened by accident in the holds of ships crossing the tropics, and is now done on purpose. It gives the wine a keeping power measured in centuries rather than years. The house has been run by the Blandy family since John Blandy came from England in 1811, and the family directs it still, 7 generations on, one of the last of the old wine dynasties left in the hands that founded it. Everything the terraces give arrives, in the end, at the market. The Mercado dos Lavradores, the workers' market, opened its doors in 1940, and its stalls hold the island cut and stacked for sale. Pyramids of the small bananas, custard apples, and passion fruit split open to show their seeds. Long silver sides of scabbardfish laid on ice beside tuna, and buckets of cut flowers carried down that morning from the same slopes the water must climb to reach. A woman fits birds of paradise into a bucket, stem by stem, while a fishmonger draws a knife the length of his forearm along a fish. And the whole trade of the island crosses these tiled counters between dawn and noon. But all of this, the fruit and the wine and the fish and the flowers, moves along a coast that could be reached. There were other places on the island the road did not come to for a very long time. Valleys folded so far back into the rock that the only crop they ever managed to send out into the world was their own people. Behind the coast, where the mountains fold back into themselves, lies a valley the island kept hidden for most of its history. Curral das Freiras, the pen of the nuns, sits on the floor of a deep crater, its walls rising more than 1,000 meters on every side, so enclosed that the sun reaches it late in the morning and leaves it early in the afternoon. By tradition, the valley took its name in 1566, when the nuns of the Santa Clara convent in Funchal fled inland to escape a French fleet that had sacked the town, carrying what treasure they could up a footpath and hiding in the one place raiders were unlikely to follow. For 4 centuries after, the only way in or out was that same path, cut into the cliff and climbed on foot. And the families who farmed the valley floor grew chestnuts and rye almost entirely cut off from the coast. A road did not reach the valley until 1959. Until then, a birth, a death, a wedding, a sack of chestnuts, all of it came and went on somebody's back, up and over the rim. That isolation was the ordinary condition of the island, not the exception. Madeira is a mountain with very little level ground, and for most of its history, it grew more people than its terraces could feed. So the island did the hardest thing it knew how to do. It sent its children away. They left for the sugar fields of British Guyana and Trinidad in the 1840s, for Brazil, for Hawaii, and later, in their tens of thousands, for Venezuela and South Africa, boarding ships in Funchal harbor with the address of a cousin folded into a pocket. An island of some 250,000 people has, across the generations, sent nearly as many again out into the world. Its largest export was itself. There is scarcely a family on Madeira without a photograph from Caracas or Johannesburg on the wall, and a chair that a son or a daughter left empty. In a kitchen in one of these valleys, an old woman lays the table for a family scattered across 3 continents, setting down plates for the ones who are here and speaking, out of long habit, of the ones who are not. A letter with a foreign stamp propped behind the salt. On the far northwest of the island, the land does not slope to the sea so much as fall to it, and at Achadas da Cruz, a small cable car drops from the cliff top some 450 meters, almost straight down, to a shelf of farmland at the water's edge. Before the cable car was built, The families who kept those plots reached them down a path in the cliff face, carrying their tools and their harvest on their shoulders, a descent that could take the better part of an hour and cost a life to a single slip. A few people still work the ground down there, vines and vegetables and sweet potato on a strip of green the ocean could nearly touch, and the cable car lifts their crop back up to the road in a steel box the size of a cupboard. For a long time, the story of Madeira was a story of leaving, of doors closed on the way to the harbor and houses given back to the weather. But the ships that carried people away carried some of them home again in time, and the money they sent ahead of themselves rebuilt the walls and unbarred the shutters. The island that was once too far to leave was learning, slowly, how to become a place worth returning to.
The cable car that opened the day still runs, and where it lets its passengers out, high above the town it climbed away from, the white church of Nossa Senhora do Monte stands at the top of 68 stone steps. Pilgrims climb those steps on their knees each August, up to the small statue kept inside. But the church holds a second story as well. In a side chapel lies Charles I, the last emperor of Austria-Hungary, sent into exile after the war and brought to Madeira in 1921, who died a few months later in 1922 of pneumonia at the age of 34 in a house on this same hillside, too poor at the end to leave the island that had taken him in. He is still here. On an island whose hardest act was always the leaving of it, he is the man who came and never did. Lower in Funchal, another name carries the opposite story. Cristiano Ronaldo, born here in 1985, the boy who left the island and became its most famous export. Proof that Madeira's old outward road still runs through living memory. Below the church, the town falls away toward the water, and the day comes down with it. Along the Avenida Arriaga, the wide avenue running through the center of Funchal, jacaranda trees flower each spring in a haze of blue and violet and drop their petals onto the pavement until the ground beneath them is the same color as the branches above. The town at sea level is where everything the island grows finally arrives. The flowers walked down from the peaks, the water that reached the last terrace, the fruit off the slopes. Once a year, the town gathers all of it into a single day. In a greenhouse above the festival route, a pair of hands lowers a young orchid into a pot of bark and firms it with 2 thumbs. The same patient work that began the day high on the mountain, the plant that will one day be cut and carried down. That day is the Festa de Flor, the flower festival, held each spring when the island empties its gardens into the streets. Growers bring cut blooms down from the hills by the crate load, and on a square in the center, thousands of children each carry a single flower to a great board and press it into place, stem by stem, until the bare wall is covered over and the shape they have built together has a name: the Wall of Hope. A girl no higher than the lowest row reaches up and fits one bloom into a gap and steps back, and the gap is gone. From the square, the flowers move down into the oldest part of the town, where a quarter that had been left half empty and shuttered was given its life back, one door at a time. Beginning in 2011, artists were invited to paint the doors of the Rua de Santa Maria, and the street people had walked away from, filled again with color. A blue fish, a woman's face, a whole field of flowers, each painted on a door that a family once closed behind them on the way to the harbor. Visitors stopped to photograph a doorway painted with a shoal of silver fish, and behind it, someone is still living, a light coming on in an upstairs window as the street fills. Now, the doors stay open. Cafes spill onto the cobbles. The smell of grilled limpets and espresso drifts between the walls. And at the foot of the street, the same sea that once carried the island's children away lies flat and bright in the afternoon light. Everything on Madeira travels downhill. The cloud into water, the water into fruit, the fruit and the flowers into the streets, and the people, at last, back through the doors they had left standing open. And far above the open doors, high on the peaks where the day first began, the light is already climbing back toward the terraced gardens on the ridge. "600 meters above the harbor, the gardener, who began the day on his knees, straightens at last. The orchid he pressed into the soil at first light, now standing in its bed. And below him, the cable car makes one of its last descents of the afternoon, toward a town where the painted doors have stayed open. The Levada water is still moving along its channel, gate by gate. In Câmara de Lobos, the boats are coming in. Along the avenue, the jacaranda lets down another blue petal. On the Rua de Santa Maria, a light comes on behind a door painted with silver fish. A crate of small bananas waits on a doorstep.